Okay, so we're looking at doing a Royal Wulff today. Starting off with a fire hole, sticks, dry fly, size 12, just so it's nice and big, so it's visible. And I've got 6/0 black thread, but obviously any colour is going to be fine. So we're going to start the thread on the hook and wind back to the top of the bend. And I've got some golden pheasant feathers here. I'm going to get about 8 or 10 of those fibres and keep them all aligned and cut them off, and then I'll trim them to length. The overall length that I like to have is probably about a hook shank length sticking out the back, and then you fasten them on, and as you apply a little bit of tension it lets them flare. Now I've got just some like trigger point fibre, you can use poly yarn or anything. The original recipe obviously calls for calf tail, but I don't have any of that right now. So, and that's kind of the gist with all of this. You can kind of improvise and change it to suit what you've got. So I tie that in, and I'm going to cut those butts off at an angle, and I'll try to get them not to extend that far down, because it's a little bit much. That's it. And I wrap them in like so and cover it, and that's just starting to help the body taper already. And then at this point you wrap right up. You're going to leave probably 2 to 3, maybe 3 hook eye lengths behind, in front, just for a bit of clearance. And then at this point you're going to, and I try not to block the camera too much, but you're going to separate the 2 clumps you've got with X wraps. So it's going over the clump in the middle, over under the hook shank, back over the clump in the middle, and just trying to separate them out a little bit. And then you can actually wrap around each individual post a bit just to post them out. You don't want to do this too much like you would on, say, a parachute fly. This is just to kind of separate the fibres out into 2 individual clumps. And then you kind of align them where you're happy with the direction and the length of them, and that's the 2 wings that we're going to use. Now I've got peacock herl, and I'm just going to use an individual one. You can do a couple to speed it up, and then I'll tie this on parallel and sort of X wrap over it, so I'm sort of starting the direction I'm going to wind it in already. I do a couple of turns and then just work forward, touching wraps forward. And what you're going to do, you're dividing your body into thirds, and really what it becomes that your hook is getting divided into quarters. So this is the back quarter of the hook, and I'm wrapping the peacock herl up to there, and then I'll stop and leave a gap, and in that gap I'm going to tie in some red. Now you can use any sort of red material, yarn, wool. I'm using flat waxed red thread, and this is good because it's naturally water repellent already, which helps for dry fly. And this is quite vivid as well, which sort of helps it look good, and that's what fly tying is all about. You wrap just to create like a nice red segment. You don't want to cover up any of the other fibres that you've already sort of put time into getting in the right spot. And then you tie that off, trim that off. I'm going to tie in, you could use the same if you didn't drop it like I did, but I've got another peacock herl, and I'm just going to tie that in, and I'm going to wrap this right up and leaving the smallest gap behind the wings to get the front hackle going forward. And I believe traditionally on this you would use a grizzly and a coachman or a brown hackle. I've just gone for plain brown, and then start to just wrap that forward, touching turns going forwards. I've done a couple behind the wings, then I'll direct the wings back and do a couple right up tight. And you can see now the proportions of this fly that you actually have like a significant amount of hackle at the front of it, in front of the wings. That sort of helps prop them up. I don't think it helps that much with buoyancy, but it certainly helps prop those wings up and make them look nice and buggy. And there you can trim your hackle off. You can preen the fibres backwards and whip finish. So I sort of get it all set up, then I use my other fingers there to hold it back. Just do a couple turn whip finish, and you could do a couple if you wanted. It's fine like that. We'll cut the thread off close. Then the final thing you can do is just kind of direct your wings a little bit more and separate them back out. But that is a basic Royal Wulff.